Bates, the lender who lives in and is a part of your community. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so by visiting my website at www.valleyofthesunrealestateshow.com. From there, connect with me on any social media platform, just about any social media platform. I'm not on Instagram yet. I promised I would get on there, but I'm not on there yet. I'm not really seeing the value in it, to be honest with you. Not on Snapchat either. But any other social media platform I am on, and I'd love to connect with you, especially on Twitter. And I am doing something a little bit special on this episode in that I am live streaming this episode and the recording of this episode. So for all of you who are live streamers, such as I am, this is a great platform to kind of check out some of the behind the scenes of me recording this podcast. So with that being said, I want to take the time now to thank one of my listeners that listen to this podcast on iTunes. It's from, let's see here, G2 Realtor. He's right here in Phoenix, Arizona. It says, "Hello, Jason. Great podcast. I'm not sure, however, I share your optimism about timeline changes to the transaction." And this is in reference to the TRID timelines. I did a podcast back a few months ago about TRID and the implications that it would have on mortgage lending. And so he's writing a review of that. While you and your company and your underwriters may be poised to try to conduct business as usual in terms of time, line turn time, I have seen an overwhelming number of lenders, loan officers, and underwriters of late completely butcher the contract timelines. Underwriters seem to be at the center of the confusion in as much as many underwriters seem to be running scared, making controversial demands upon the transaction. One of the dominant controversial demands are those that ask/require the borrower, this is a pretty long review here, but ask the borrower to explain deposits and withdrawals into and out of bank accounts, not just for large sums, but also for sums as small as $100, and to, in some instances, require documentation to source the funds. This is just one example of items that can delay closing. Additionally, as the market is currently running a bit hot here in the Valley, pun intended, I suppose, which it is a pretty hot market, and we'll get into that here in just a second. Let's see here, I lost my place. But high in the Valley, many underwriters are running well beyond 48 to 72-hour turnaround, and I've seen underwriter turn times that have eclipsed 5 days. I'm here in Arizona State Director of VAREP, Veterans Association of Real Estate Professionals, and the Director of Government Affairs for the Phoenix chapter of VAREP. I spend a lot of time communicating directly with members of Congress, OCC, FHFA, HUD, FTC, and CFPB. I can assure you that none of these entities expect a business-as-usual scenario to play out regarding TRID for many months, perhaps as long as a year or so. So while I certainly applaud your optimism, I suspect the scenario you painted will be in the minority and the helter-skelter will be the majority. Just saying, laugh out loud. Very respectfully, G. Second Verado, the second Realtor, retired U.S. Air Force, Arizona State Director, VAREP. Well, hey, thanks for that review, number one. And I want to kind of speak to that a little bit because TRID has caused some disruption. There's no question about that. It's how prepared lenders are, realtors are, sellers are in the transaction. And communication is key to this. And I will say, and I'm not just the only one, so I'm not tooting my horn here, but I will say that the vast majority of the real professionals, and when I say real professionals, the real professionals, not the part-timers, not the guys who got into the business 5 years ago, but the guys and gals who take this job very seriously, actually communicate with their realtors and keep everybody informed. They are meeting close of escrow dates in 30 days or less. I just had one close that was 2 weeks ahead of close of escrow. Now, that close of escrow was set for, I believe, 35 days. So it was even within 30 days. And I've even talked to some of my other colleagues in other companies who are very professional, and they've closed deals in as little as 14 and even 20 days. 14 days to compete with cash offer buyers because, as you alluded to in your review, the Phoenix market is still pretty hot in a certain price range. So with that being said, as long as communication is there, I do feel that a 30-day close of escrow with the right loan officer, with the right lender, and with the right realtors who communicate with the lenders on a regular basis, you can make that close of escrow, and you can make it within 30 days. So, but thank you very much for writing that review. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, please write a review of your own, as I do try to read those on air, and do appreciate any feedback that you can give me, because it is one of the only ways that I have to help improve the show. So let's get right into what I'm starting to see here. It's now the end of the first quarter here in Phoenix, Arizona. And, I have a little bit of a different perspective on things than a realtor may have on the real estate market. As a lender, I see things from a little bit different angle. And so I want to kind of go over those things here with everyone, and maybe shed some light onto where the future may be going in real estate. So I want to review kind of the trends in Arizona that could tell a story for the future in real estate. Now, number one here, and I've heard this time and time again about millennials, and millennials are probably tired of hearing about themselves. I've done some interviews with millennials, and the one thing about millennials is that millennials aren't really that loyal. Sorry, millennials, but you're not loyal to anything. You're not loyal to each other. You're not loyal to your job. You're certainly not loyal to housing. So this notion of buying a house and planting roots is a little bit of a scary thought. It's scary for anybody for that matter, but millennials especially. And employers, it's not just millennials, but employers are not, they're not loyal to their employees either. So we're seeing this like expendable kind of trend going out there of employers and employees, and there's a little bit of a tussle going back and forth. Millennials just aren't afraid to, rock the boat and move on. Where, other generations were a little more resistant to rocking the boat and moving on. They wanted to try to make it work out with the employer, where millennials take a little bit different approach to that. So the reason I mention that is because if they're not loyal to their employer and they can move throughout the country to gain employment, as we've seen a lot of millennials do, move throughout the country, then there's no need to buy a house. And that held true with some millennials that I interviewed out of Texas. Said, hey, look, I'm not loyal to my employer. My employer's not loyal to me. So why would I buy a house knowing that I may move in 5 years? Just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And we have this little situation where millennials have kind of lived through watching their parents lose everything. A lot of Americans lost a lot, just not too long ago. And so having this generation witness that, it makes them a little more apprehensive about purchasing, especially something as large as a home, and being financially responsible for that. Now, the other key component to that is a lot of millennials are coming out of college and income just isn't there. This promise of making $200,000 a year just is, not necessarily a reality for a lot of people. And so we have that underemployed, and I've spoke to that quite extensively on previous podcasts. So you have this underemployed millennial segment. And in fact, there was just a study done that I want to kind of read here about millennials and their affordability to purchase. And I spoke to this, and the head secretary of HUD spoke to this too. Castro spoke of the affordability housing issue that we have in this country. And so, the percentage of homeowners under 35 years of age, and this is in 2015, studies are always kind of done behind. They have to gather the data before they can actually release it. So this was the percentage of homeowners under 35 years of old in 2015 was nearly 8% lower than what it was in 2005. So just in 10 years, we have a smaller percentage of people in that age bracket that are not homeowners. Now, that's partially due to what I was just explaining about millennials and the attitude toward real estate. And I've said that for a long time, that we are going through an adjustment as citizens, as a culture, about the attitude toward owning real estate. And then the other part of it is the underemployed. I mean, you're just not making a lot of money. Now, the article also goes on, speaking of making money, the article goes on to say how much you can afford in a particular area, given the median income and what people were actually making for a particular area. So in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona specifically, the home that a millennial can afford, which is actually pretty good, is $172,000. That's pretty good. That's going to get you about a 1,400 square foot home on average. Now, it all depends on where you're buying and everything like that, but on average, it's $172,000 home here in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, compare that to Los Angeles, for example. It's $111,000 that they can afford, and that's only 297 square feet of living space. So smaller than an apartment, right? Denver, Colorado, for example, 173 square feet at $45,000. San Francisco, California, $120,000 will get you 135 square feet. 135 square feet. That's a 10 by 3 room. Crazy. Chicago, Illinois, 148,937 square feet. Seattle, Washington, $200,000, 539 square feet. So when you look at the West Coast, in particular, Phoenix is the most affordable place to live. Buying $172,000 and getting you 1,400 square feet, that's a decent starter home, square footage-wise, for a couple. Now, some might argue $172,000 is a lot of money. Yes, I get it. I mean, my first house that I purchased, it was about 1,400 square feet, and I paid $144,000. So price is one of those things that is trending upward, and that will continue to trend upward in my estimation. Builders are just now starting to build more affordable housing, and that goes into my next little segment about condos and townhomes. We're seeing a lot of townhomes and condos being purchased. We're seeing kind of a little bit of a trend in the condo and some of the even amenities that they offer. And I think some builders are kind of overthinking it a little bit. Now, I know that they do a lot more market data and have access to a lot more market data than I have, no question about it. But they tend to get overthink things, in my opinion, a little bit. Sometimes just getting a nice starter home is a great starting point, especially in the condo and townhome market. But have a condo townhome market that has, that costs $300,000 with concierge service and all this other kind of stuff is a little bit overdoing it, in my opinion. But they are selling, and so we are seeing the condo market kind of pick up and the townhome market really pick up. And I believe that is due to the affordable housing issue that we have. And the lifestyle, too. Lifestyle of the condo is much different than the lifestyle of the suburban, single-family dwelling. So I think lifestyle is a part of that trend as well for millennials. So with that, I want to kind of go into another segment here that I think is very telling to what the future may hold for real estate. And I'll get to I'm not going to really make a prediction here, but I think that these things just all kind of, when you look at them collectively all together, you can kind of formulate your own kind of opinion as to what the future may hold for mortgages or for real estate in general. So I talked before about credit, and we've seen many times, or in many news articles, news, primetime news, all that kind of stuff. We've seen a lot of people say it's hard to get a mortgage, very difficult to get a mortgage. You gotta, give your left arm and your right leg to get a mortgage. Pull some wisdom teeth, all that kind of stuff. Very difficult to get a mortgage. Well, a lot of companies are starting to acknowledge that it is difficult. Now, the one thing I will say here, a lot of companies that look at these credit risks and lending into individuals, there's a little bit of a double-edged sword here going on, because mortgage companies, although they want to extend credit to as many people as possible, that's how they make some revenue and gain some portfolio and grow as a company. At the same time, when they're penalized from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac in doing some what they consider to be risky or risque type lending, then they get penalized for it. So although they want to extend credit to everybody and as many people as possible, they can't always do that. And so, because they get penalized from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So now Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac is kind of recognizing that, and we've seen articles, I've seen articles in the past 6 months of HUD saying, hey, you've got to extend credit out to more people. You have to loosen your guidelines. You have to, get rid of some of these overlays and things like that. And creditors and lenders are saying, well, I would if you wouldn't penalize me. And so there is this tug of war kind of going back and forth. So with that being said, there has been a bill introduced, and it's from Republican or Representative, Royce and Representative Terry Sewell. They're both Democrats out of Alabama. That have introduced H.R. 4211. Now, what this bill is to allow, and I'm just going to read it here, the Credit Score Competition Act of 2015 is what it's called. You want to look that up, which will allow Freddie and Fannie Mae to use other credit scoring models besides the Fair Isaac model. Now, Fair Isaac, as we all know it, is FICO. Your FICO score, your credit score. That's what the Fair Isaac score is. And that is the only score that is currently used to determine risk when lending you money. And so that's a little bit of a monopoly kind of going on. Royce and Sewell based their legislation on the problems faced by would-be home buyers, like low to middle-income Americans who can responsibly pursue homeownership but don't have the FICO score. And I've always said this is a big problem, and I'm glad they're kind of addressing it here. I'm not a politician here, so I don't know how if they're addressing it the proper way, if they're doing it for their own political gain or what. But the fact that it's even being brought to conversation is actually good. FICO scores are, remember, just a snapshot of time on your credit life, if you will. And so with that snapshot in time, it's not always accurate to the person that you actually are, because there are good days and there are bad days. And so having a bad day and having your credit snapped on that bad day is not a good depiction of your credit worthiness. And so with that being said, what they're going to start doing, and I'll read some more of this article here, but there's trended credit that's going to be released here in 2016. So trended credit. And the credit bureaus are already starting to recognize trended credit. These are individuals who actually pay off their credit card balances, for example, pay them off on a monthly basis. Don't make just the minimum monthly payments, but actually pay the credit cards off. Those individuals are going to have a lower risk score than somebody who just makes the minimum monthly payments. So for all of you out there who are thinking, hey, I'm making my payments on time, I'm doing exactly what I've been told to do, I'm walking on water here, I'm doing exactly as I've been told to do and taught to do as a child, to pay these credit cards, minimum monthly balances, easy for me to say, minimum monthly balances or payments, I've been paying them every single month. Yeah, why wouldn't somebody lend me? I've shown the ability to manage debt, I've shown the ability to organize myself and pay these things on time. Why wouldn't I? Well, there are a lot of individuals who actually pay credit cards off. And some credit cards give these incentives, mileage and all these other kind of incentives, airline mileage and whatnot, so that you can, continue making monthly payments. So there's a little bit of incentive there for you to make that minimum monthly payment. There are those individuals who actually pay their credit cards off in full every single month. And by doing so, that actually is going to reflect in the credit score come June of this year. Now, there's a couple things that haven't been determined, and that is when somebody pays it off every single month, what do we use as creditors to determine the minimum monthly payment scheduled for that credit card? If you're paying, if you're paying a $2,000 balance off every month, is now your payment $2,000? Do I need to count $2,000 in your debt-to-income ratio to qualify you for the new home? That hasn't been determined yet. I suspect that'll come out here very, very soon, though, because this is getting rolled out for sure. Now, this article also goes on to say TransUnion released a new report forecasting the state of the credit and mortgage lending industries in 2016. The report reveals that the consumer lending market will have fully recovered by the end of next year. That's this year. Or excuse me, by the end of 2017, I believe it is. A little confusing in the article here. And that will pretty much end the second Great Recession. And I think what they're going off of there is that most people who had an economic event in their past will be beyond that 7-year period. The vast majority of Americans will be beyond 7 years. And so then they will be deemed credit worthy at that point to purchase homes and other large purchases. Now, TransUnion also forecasts that the mortgage delinquency rate will decline from 2.5% at the end of 2015, just a couple months ago, to 2.06% at the end of 2016. So by the end of this year, mortgage delinquencies, and we're seeing that, right? I mean, we're not seeing as many foreclosures out there. We're not seeing as many bank-owned properties and that sort of thing. So that goes without saying. I think that trend will likely continue. We'll have to see how credit card debt and other debts accumulate for consumers, but I think a lot of consumers kind of learned their lesson on that and aren't going to run up a lot of credit cards. So I don't see that trend going too much in the opposite direction there as far as mortgage delinquencies. The other thing, too, that I want to mention on this article, recently Ellie Mae published an Origination Insight report finding that the credit score on closed loans had dropped to the lowest level since Ellie Mae began tracking the data in 2011. The average FICO score on all loans fell to 723. So credit score point 723, which is still fairly good in the mortgage arena. They like to see anything above 740. And some mortgage insurance companies like to see anything above 760 even. But 740 pretty much gets you anything that you want. 720 is still very, very good as far as the credit score. So depending on when you're at your credit score, 720 is kind of what you want to kind of shoot for. 740 obviously is the best. 720 still will get you just about anything you need. So with that being said, these things, when you look at these things together, I think that there's there's a message here. Number one, millennials that everybody's kind of focusing on that will save the housing market. I'm not sure they will for a couple of reasons. I don't think that, given the fact that they're not going to get paid as much, the dollar doesn't go as far, although you can argue that with gas prices being as low as they are currently here in March. But they're not making as much money. They're not as dedicated to a one particular area to plant roots. That's due in large part because a lot of millennials just they're not married, they don't have children, they don't have a lot of commitments outside of their own that would tie them down to any one particular area. That will change over the next 10 years or so. And then affordable homes, like I was alluding to there, affordable housing, until we get more affordable housing, I think that will hold some things back. And then the documentation is getting easier to get. So we've got some aspects of real estate kind of holding back. We've got other aspects that are looking for ways to bring more buyers into the market, such as the trended credit. There's even talk in the future of having where if your employer, where I wouldn't even ask you for your income documentation, I would not ask you for your pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, because they would be all online where I could go and pull that information as long as your employer participates in it. Which that will free up the employers as well from having to verify employment to get a loan. So I think a lot of employers will partake in that. The Work Number is one of those companies that does the third-party service that we use to verify employment. So we could just go through not just the Work Number, but we could log into a website, a secure website, for example, and pull that data out of there. Now there might be some identity issues there. I'm sure that will have to be kind of ironed out, and employers may be a little bit resistant to that. But I could see in the future where you could actually go somewhere as a lender and pull data, especially tax returns and stuff like that, and not have to burden the consumer with asking to get that information to you. So on one hand, I see the restriction or the attitude toward real estate holding real estate back. On the other hand, I see lenders and government branches of the government, if you will, trying to find additional ways to bring more buyers into the market, more homeowners in the market. Because remember, homeowners really stabilize the economy. The more homeowners there are, the more stable the economy is, as long as the home ownership
done correctly and the lending on that homeownership is done correctly. So my take on this and what I'm kind of getting at, long story short, 20 minutes here into this is that I see continued growth to an extent when it comes to the value of the homes. I still see demand pretty high, which is going to push pricing, but I think there's going to be a ceiling to pricing that will come in the next couple of years unless we start to see more disposable income driven to the consumer. So I think we're going to reach a level. I don't think we're going to have a crash. I'm not saying anything like that, but I do see that we could have a leveling off. We've had exceptional growth here in Phoenix as far as values of homes. We're not near. We're about 30% shy of what we were in 2008, which was the height of the market. So we're not that far off when you think about the value of homes. Yet incomes are not 30% of what they were back in 2008. So that's why I say we're probably going to see a leveling off to some degree. And then once everything kind of gets back to normal as far as pay, I think that's why we're starting to see a lot of politicians who are pushing for $15 an hour and that sort of thing because they see this kind of coming. And so they're trying to drive more people into homeownership by getting a little more creative with credit and how we evaluate credit to hopefully bring more buyers into the space of homeownership. So I think when you look at all these things together, I think it does tell a little bit of a story as to where the future may be. And so you can kind of take it for what you feel or what you think it's worth. I kind of look at this stuff. I know it's kind of a little bit boring, and I apologize about it being boring this time. But I did feel it was pretty valuable information, and it's information that you need to know so that when you're going out there to purchase your home, you can look at it as an investment and know that your investment is safe or make the call for yourself. So with that, I hope you got a lot of information out of this particular episode. If you did, please tell your friends, as I do appreciate word of mouth. That's the biggest compliment I can get. If you are looking to purchase or refinance a home here in Arizona, please reach out to me. I love the opportunity to earn your business. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and end the show. I got to start my phone here for all you live listeners here. So I'm going to listen to that, huh? I'm going to start it up here. Wow, I think that didn't go so good. So with that, I think I'll do some editing on the podcast. But hey, thanks a lot for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to what I have to say. And until next time, happy house hunting, and I hope to hear from you soon. Take care, everyone. Jayson Bates, NMLS 2200798, Mortgage Banking License 1796, Equal Credit Opportunity Lender. Sound effects provided by SoundJ.com. That was a little bit of a disaster. All right, let's stop here. Okay, so just still doing a little bit of behind the scenes here, but that should be. I'm going to do some editing here real quick. I may play this back. So you may hear this. I don't know if you'll hear this or not. I'll have to pick some points out here. Kind of edit this. Let's play this back. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and end the show. I got to start my phone here for all you live listeners here. So. All right. And end the show. I gotta start my. And end the show. I gotta start my. Okay, so let's dive here a little bit. Let's highlight this. Show. I gotta. Show. So I may just re-record that part there. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and end the show. I got to start. Okay, so I think I'm going to end that there. Hey, thanks a lot for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to what I have to say. And until next time, happy house hunting, and I hope to hear from you soon. Hey, thanks a lot for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. So with that, I think we're going to... Please reach out to me. I'd love the opportunity to earn your business. So let's edit this. Let's delete this here. Edit. Let's delete. Let's see how that kind of looks here. Please reach out to me. I'd love the opportunity to earn your business. Hey, thanks a lot for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to what I have to say. And until next time, happy house hunting, and I hope to hear from you soon. Take care, everyone. All right, so that sounds pretty good there at the end. Let's edit some of this beginning here. Edit, delete, play. So I think that hello, Arizona, and welcome to... So I think that'll do it here. I'm going to export this here. Let me do some effects here. We're going to use this here. Nope, can't really amplify it. Okay, so I think it looks pretty good. I think the sound looks pretty good. I don't know if there's really any sound effects I'm going to put in there, but I think everything looks pretty good right like that. So I'm going to go ahead and export this as an MP3, which I do on every podcast here. Create a folder here. We'll call it the Trends in Arizona. Okay, trends in Arizona that tell a bigger story. I'm going to start numbering my tracks here. I haven't done that. I'm going to add this here. Okay. Okay, so that's being exported. I know I'm still live here on my live streaming. So hopefully, for all of you, if you are listening out there or watching this out there, if you are, haven't looked at it. But if you are, hopefully you got some information out of it. This is how I do my podcast each time I do it. So thank you for watching. And if you want to reach out to me, please reach out to me. I'd love the opportunity to earn your business. If you're looking to buy, if you're looking to purchase or refinance a home here in the state of Arizona. So until next time, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out any other live episodes that I do. I'm trying to do as many as I possibly can. I'd love to connect with you. And if you'd like to be part of the show, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. All right, until next time, take care.